Hello, welcome to Stampin' Peace with Mary Knabe. Today I want to show you how you can add shading and various colors to your stamped images by applying ink directly to your rubber stamps using a sponge dauber. I think you'll find this coloring technique very helpful, and we'll find that it makes a great deal of difference in creating dimension in your stamped images. So let me go over to my craft table and I'll get started showing you this technique. For today's demonstration, I'll be featuring stamps from the See the Good stamp set. This was a recent class to go of mine, and it's a wonderful stamp set for showing this technique using sponge daubers. Here are just a few of the cards people made with their See the Good class to go. And I wanted to point out on these the variation of color shades on each of them. Here with the rich raspberry, we stamped off the flowers using rich raspberry ink. On this card, you can see that my artichokes have various shades of green in them. You can also see that I've used light shades of crumb cake for the splatter effect in the background. And then finally, take a look at the pears. You'll notice that the pears have three colors: Bumblebee, some Pear Pizzazz, and then some early espresso as well. I'll be showing you how to create these beautiful pears, highlighting the three beautiful colors. To begin, I'm going to show you how simple it is to create shades of one particular color. To do that, I'm going to stamp this greenery in Pear Pizzazz ink. Now, if I wanted more greenery, but wanted it to look as if there were some in front, back, sort of arranged, I might go ahead and stamp off some more. So now you can see that by inking up my stamp just one time, but stamping on my cardstock 3 times, I get varying shades of that Pear Pizzazz. I'm doing the same thing with my rich raspberry ink and the flowers. I'm going to stamp once and then stamp again. That's called stamping off. So if you hear people talking about the stamping off technique, that's what it is. Stamp once, stamp twice. You've stamped off the ink twice. And some people might even choose to stamp off on some scrap paper first if they want all of their flowers or stamped images to be of a lighter shade. And right here you can see the difference in shading. I can even take that a step further by continuing to stamp off and get even more shades of that same rich raspberry color. Next, I want to show you how to stamp the artichoke and get various shades of green. I'm going to ink up my stamp with the Pear Pizzazz ink, and I'm going to stamp it just like that. It looks pretty good, doesn't it? But I want even a little bit more dimension. So now I'm going to use one of my sponge daubers, and I'm going to add some Mossy Meadow ink to my rubber stamp after I ink it up in the Pear Pizzazz ink. So now I'm using the Mossy Meadow. I'm going to ink up my Sponge Dauber real well with the Mossy Meadow, and then I'm just going to tap it onto my red rubber stamp directly on top of the Pear Pizzazz ink that I already have there. And then I will stamp it off right beside the first one I did. And you can see now that I have even more shades and more color, more dimension because of adding that second color. If you're doing this technique and stamping many of a single image, I'm going to suggest that you use our Simply Chamois to clean off your stamps in between applying the dark and light colors. That way you will not be contaminating your lighter shades of ink with your darker shades of ink. For this final part of my demonstration, I'd like to show you how I added 3 shades of color to these pears to make them look real and to make them look very dimensional, even though they're flat surface images. I'm going to start by inking up my pear with the Bumblebee ink. And I'm going to stamp it once just to show you what it looks like with just the Bumblebee ink. I think it looks pretty good just like that. However, we can make it look even more wonderful. To do that, I'm going to once again use a Sponge Dauber to add another layer of color. So I'm going to ink up the pear stamp, and then I'm using my Sponge Dauber to pick up Pear Pizzazz ink, and I want to just tap it lightly on the pear, just around the outside edge. Just like that. So you get a little more color. And let's do it one more time, because as you can see in my pears here, I have a brown stem and I also have some speckle that you will see on pears. So I'm going to clean off my pear stamp with my Simply Chamois. That looks pretty clean. Yep, I think I got all the ink off. I'm going to ink it up with the Bumblebee ink. And then I'm going to, once again, tap on some of that Pear Pizzazz ink. Now I do want my stem to be brown. I don't want it to be Bumblebee. I want it to look more authentic, more real. So I'm just going to go over that little stem part with my Early Espresso Stampin' Write marker. What a difference it makes by adding the additional colors to the Bumblebee pear. And finally, I told you we're going to add some speckle there. Now note, when I stamp this, it comes out, oops, that's the wrong color. Did you ever do that? Put your stamp in the wrong color ink pad. It does happen. So if you'll notice, when I stamp this, it comes out a little bit heavy. So I might want to stamp off first because to get that lighter shade onto my pear. So that's what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to stamp off and then stamp onto my pear. stamp off some ink, and stamp onto my pear. Now, if you want a little more variation, flip your stamp. I had it this direction, now I'm going this way. Stamp off the ink and stamp onto my pear. So what do you think? I love the way we can get varying shades of color and the way that we can use more than one color on our stamps by using ink pads and sponge daubers and even our Stampin' Write markers. I hope you found this video to be helpful and inspiring, and I look forward to seeing some of the things you make and you stamp with your sponge daubers and various colors. Thanks for visiting Stampin' Piece with Mary Knabe.